Top of the morning, everybody, and welcome to Popcorn Culture. As always, I am your one true host, Jazzy J, joined today, as usual, by my brother, the one true co-host, Buzzy Benjamin B. How's it going, Ben?
You know, honestly, I was kind of having a little bit of like a Fight Club moment as I opened up the show notes here, where I was like, I feel like something has happened that I don't remember. And that's because in the show notes, you have the question, how is Ben's Coke addiction going?
Yeah.
To which I was like, as Ben could use some context.
Right.
Because I was like, do I have a Coke addiction?
Well, so I think last week in the you asked me about this, and I was like, now it's like a week removed from context, so it doesn't really make sense. And if you didn't see it in the show notes last week, then it really doesn't make sense. But
quietly somewhere out there on the internet, somebody like checked the show notes and were like,
oh, that's right, because the show notes get posted. Yeah, that's hilarious. I didn't even think about that.
Someone's like, oh, man,
maybe we should address it.
I'm surprised we just like skated right past
right.
whatever Ben's going through.
Skated right past
Clearly something. So for immediate crystal clear clarity, because now we've provided just innumerable words that have gone out into the internet, where we've talked about Ben's Coke addiction.
About Ben Carlin's Coke addiction. Yes.
Yeah. So now we've got like sound bites that somehow, like, you know, if we're ever running for public office, it'll be like, someone will find this and like find a way to like twist
they'll
it
be
together.
like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Here's Ben himself talking about his Coke addiction.
Exactly. Now, so basically I forget exactly what we were talking about last week, but as I understand it, like if you are a member of like Alcoholics Anonymous or something, the messaging or sort of like the way it goes is that like if you were an alcoholic, even if you've been sober, like you like continue to be one, even if you've been sober for like 10 years.
Yeah,
like
I guess that's what
like
people talk about it, like the addiction is a disease.
Like it is, yeah. So it's like like you're always a recovering alcoholic, even if it's been, you know, forever.
Yes, you're right. Yeah,
so
correct.
So in that same way, I remember that you these days do not drink soda almost at all, but definitely like dark soda.
Yeah, I would say that it's a pretty rare thing for me to have soda in any capacity, and for the most part, so yeah, for double crystal clear clarity, we're talking about Coca-Cola the beverage.
Yeah, Coca-Cola the beverage,
not cocaine.
Yeah,
yeah, so it's a pretty rare thing to have soda at all, and when I do, it's almost always like as like a mixer in some type of like, you know, like cocktail type drink, like a ginger beer or something like that. But back in my high school days, or not high school days, really high school into college, I guess, particularly like with cross country, one of the things that I like think was constantly happening was our team ran just a stupendous amount, I think, even for cross-country runners. Like
could be.
Our coaches had been like collegiate runners, where the typical event, I think, is the 8K instead of the 5K. So it's like a little bit longer. But as a result, I feel like their coaching regimen that they used was like 10 miles like per weekday, and that was like, you know, like our base runs, and then if it was like a workout day, it was like a bare minimum that they would like comprise 8 miles of like distance traveled. So over the course of like a 5-day week, on minimum you probably ran 40 miles, and on maximum close to like 50 plus miles.
Right. Yeah. Something ridiculous.
And I think that like one of the big things like I've looked back on at the time, because like one of the things I used to always say is that like I always kind of felt like I really wish I had played football, because like I just really enjoyed playing like pickup football more than anything.
Yeah.
It was just like so much fun to go and like play in the backyard with like my buddies and everything, and I just super enjoyed it. And both of us have just like
really
very
big hands.
Yeah. So there's a chance that like maybe like as like a wide receiver or something like that, we could have like, you know, had like some high school glamour. I don't know what the right word I'm looking for there is. Like the idea like excelling at a sport or something.
Sure. Yeah.
Some stardom.
Sure.
But one of the big things about me, and I'll get back to the why this is involved with Coke in the first place, but is that as a high schooler, I was, you know, 6 foot tall and weighed like maybe 130 pounds soaking wet, like just.
Oh, I know. Like sometimes, like Beth asked me recently, like what I weighed in high school, and I was like 150.
Yeah,
and she was like, "What?"
Right.
You know, which is ridiculous because I like hover around like the 180 mark in my adult life most of the time.
Sure.
And so like even like these days when I feel like, man, I've been like working hard, I've been, you know, really trim, I've been working out, I've been eating really healthy for like, you know, even like a several months period. I feel like I've definitely like cut weight or whatever. I'll look in the mirror and be like, even in your form right now, you are 30 pounds heavier than you were like in cross country shape.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Which is not to say that's a bad thing. I think that is a good thing and that I am a much healthier person today, but it is just hilarious to me that like me going to college weighed like 30 pounds less because like right now I am a regular normal fit looking person.
Yes.
Whereas
yeah,
like
absolutely.
if I lost 30 pounds, I would probably look sick, you know?
Yeah, right. Exactly. And that's sort of like what I'm touching on here is I think like it would not have surprised me because the idea of like the like athletes diet that like we would have been needing, like it would not have been unreasonable in high school when we were doing this much like physical activity for us to be eating 3,500 plus calories per day.
Mm-hmm.
And instead it would not at all have surprised me if I would wake up and have like a Pop-Tart for breakfast, a school lunch for lunch, and then like tacos for dinner with mom or something.
Right.
You know, and like that would have been like the day's slate. Like it honestly, I don't even know if it would have surprised me if I was eating like 1,500 calories a day while also running that far.
Right.
And so I realized, and it came back to me a little bit while I was marathon training, where like I would get to the end of a run, and this would happen to me in high school all the time, and I would be craving sugar like just no other. It was like, and like I think at the time it was just sort of like, yeah, because sugar is awesome, soda is delicious, like of course I want like to leave practice and go and get like a Slurpee from 7-Eleven or something like that, you know, like, and I don't think it ever really occurred to me that it was my body being like, dude, you need more nutrients.
You'd be depleted right now.
Right. So it was like, all right, we're going to go for sugar because that's going to be like the one way transfer of all of the energy you just exerted. We're going to like consume just a lot and instantly burn it right back off again.
Right.
And so that was sort of like my entire high school regime. But I bring a lot of that up because even the idea of like playing football in high school, I would have been broken in half if somebody had like tackled me. I mean, like people literally called me like string bean because I was like just tall and lanky.
Yeah, but I mean, if you'd been playing football, you would have been working out in the weight room a lot and not running that far.
Not running that far. And probably I would suspect that the football coaches probably had more of a like, hey, you need to be eating
a lot of food.
Yeah. More than what you're currently eating because you are just too small to be out there. And so I think that that's probably, you know, something that would have come into play. But so as a result, I feel like as I especially like sort of like left high school, entered college, and, you know, like was doing like my own like grocery shopping and stuff is when I really started like go buy like soda. And it was sort of like, I can get whatever I want and fill my fridge with whatever I want.
Whatever I want.
And so I did. And so through college, I feel like I probably had like an entire lifetime's worth of Coca-Cola.
Right. Yeah. I remember like when we were living together, I think, or you've told me that you were drinking like maybe like 3 cans of just like Coca-Cola regular per day.
Coke heavy.
Coke heavy. Yeah.
As we call
Coke
it, yeah.
diesel.
Coke diesel.
Yeah.
I think that would have been like an easy assertion that it would have been at least that.
Right.
Yeah.
But then at some point you just decided quitting cold turkey.
Pretty much. Yeah. And you know, the day that I specifically remember was going, we were doing yard work at your, the first house that you guys bought, which the backyard had like been very meticulously, by the prior owners, like they had like planted like all sorts of like different kinds of like bushes and foliage, and
they were into some plant life.
Yes. And I know that like upon getting there, that was like that you would almost need to be like a full-time gardener to have like tended to it.
I mean, it was definitely like a full-time hobby for them. And then in the meantime, they had already vacated the home for like 6 months. So like no one was taking care of it. And there was like higher than average number of things that had become very overgrown.
Yes. Yeah. And so I basically remember that like we were out there, we were like slaving away. I think we had already taken like multiple trips, to the dump, like of just like all of this like plant life and material and things that we had like taken down to like try to like get you back to like backyard zero.
Right.
And Beth came out and handed everybody it was a coconut LaCroix, which I'm sure people will have strong opinions about. But
no, people do have opinions about the coconut LaCroix.
Yeah. Personally a fan
as well.
But and partially due to this next fact, which was just that like same thing. So I was like, I'm out there like working, we're sweating, doing like all this stuff, and it was like the moment it hit my lips, I was like, this is amazing. Yeah, like, I needed this so bad, and I was like, you know what? Honestly, I can drink this, and it's not soda and full like sugar and stuff, and I'll just drink this instead. And so like literally like that day, it wasn't like a planned thing. It wasn't like, like I was looking at myself being like, I need to make a change. It was just sort of like,
this is just healthier.
This is just healthier. So it's just like, boom, done, over with this. Like, and just basically like from that day forward, I just never drank Coke ever again.
Man.
I know. And so this was, or I guess I like dark sodas is what I would say. I've had like Sprite as well. It's probably somewhere, like mixed in there. But again, it's a pretty rare thing.
What about the coloring makes a difference to you?
I have literally no idea. This is possibly where like even including this in the show notes is like where like in some way the dark soda, like a Dr. Pepper would be more likely to, and maybe I see what your point is here now too, more likely to make me like, air quotes, fall off the wagon, so to speak, where it would be like, it's like, if I'm going to have a Dr. Pepper, it's like, that's not that different from like a Coke Diesel.
Right.
So like, I may as well just go and have one of those again. And so like during like Allie's pregnancy, for example, though, like, she had, just like all of her myriad of cravings. And for one period of time, I think like second trimester, it was Coke. And so I remember like I would go, like fix it for her because she'd be like sitting on the couch. And like, I think that like the soda syrup would like help ease the nausea or something. And it would be the type of thing where it's like that first like fizzing, bubbly scent smell. Sure. After it's like been poured over ice.
Yeah.
That's what almost got me. That was the moment where it was like, oh dear. Like it's like it like occurred to me. I was like, I don't ever think of this as a problem. I don't have temptation. Like when we go out to lunch, like, there's never even a part of me that's like, I would love to order a Coke right now.
Right.
But self-discipline. Gotta stick to it. Like it's not like that. Like I'm not battling with it on like a daily. But I will say when Allie was going through that phase, there was a couple of moments where I was like, oh man, this smells really good. It was almost like my mouth was like salivating at like the thought of it. I was like, I wonder if it would be a problem. And so anyway, I just that was probably a moment where it was like, all right, gotta summon some willpower here.
That is so. It's curious to me that the coloring of the drink matters to you because like it doesn't like it would surprise me to find out that like Coke was worse for you than Sprite or something. And like I've seen you like at the movies drink a Starry or
like the new Sierra Mist.
The new Sierra Mist or a Sprite or ginger ale or something.
Sure.
So it's like, I know it's not that like zero soda policy, but like I've heard you also use the phrase dark soda before. Like, and it's like, I don't think there's really a difference between dark soda and clear soda except for the color, except maybe what I'm hearing from you is that if you drank what you knew to be a dark soda, it would be more of a slippery slope because it would like make you want a Coke more and just because of the color.
Yes.
And if you drank Coke again, maybe it would be a very slippery slope and you would just fall back into like a much less healthy habit.
Like a habitual behavior.
Yeah.
And I think you hit the nail right on the head. Like this is not like a high horse type of like, I only drink clear sodas because the honest thought is that I don't really just drink. That's why I keep going back to it. It's like I don't drink a lot of soda anyway.
Right, yeah.
And so that's probably more or less like what it comes down to. And so I think that probably at its core, when I enjoyed it at the most, it was just that like the standard standard brand Coke. And that was like the thing. So, and realistically, I mean, like, the other big thing that was happening during this particular phase of my life is that I was climbing a lot. And one of the big things for rock climbers, at least it seemed like the general consensus within our gym, was sort of like, the more body weight that you could keep off, then the less weight you had to haul up the rocks.
Right.
And so like I've even heard people before say like, that like if they were like big into rock climbing, like they didn't even want to do like squats and stuff because like you don't need really, really, really powerful legs to climb.
Oh, right, to climb. But that like, squats will grow your leg muscles considerably.
Yes, yeah. And so then you're dragging even like leg muscle weight up the wall. So it's like, it's literally like keeping all weight lower. So I think probably this aligned very nicely with my other more pressing goals at the time, which was to excel at rock climbing. And so what I did was it was like, all right, well, this will probably also cut down on something. Maybe I will lose like a couple extra pounds. And when you're reaching the point that I think I was with that activity, that probably does start to make like
1% differences and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like that's kind of like what you need to like to take that next little step. Those like 1% incremental improvements.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah. Anyway, so that's largely what it comes down to. But so yeah, how is my to answer the question in full after nearly 20 minutes of discussion is how is Ben's Coke addiction going? I would say it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah, you have it under control. Well, I just thought I'd check in on you. Make sure you're doing okay over there.
Right. No, I appreciate it.
I got your back, man.
Right.
If you ever feeling it, you need to call me and be like, Jay, I'm really feeling a Coke right now. I'll be like, Ben, reach for the Sprite. It's okay.
Reach for that. It's gonna be fine. It's clear soda. It's way healthier.
It's way better for you.
You can get through this. But yeah, so when I was marathon training though, it was exactly the same thing again, where I would get to the end of some of these long runs and it would be like, I could go and make like an entire tray of brownies and eat the whole thing right now.
Yeah.
And it was because it was just like what I wanted so badly was just pure raw energy sugar.
Right.
Like, just like immediate conversion type stuff.
Right.
And anyway, so, but pretty much since I have ebbed off of my marathon training, I have also found that this particular craving just once again went away. So it's like, okay.
Oh man.
That's helpful.
Okay, I do remember. This is maybe just an intro. I think this will serve as a good segue.
Okay.
As like a what is like a psychological phenomenon or whatever. I know.
I love where we're headed.
This is like a me remembering like a I'm sure you're familiar with like the spotlight effect, which is just that like your belief that everyone notices everything about you, that like you're the center of attention, and the failure to recognize that.
No, they do.
They do. Okay.
They do, yeah.
Well, this is a story about how I learned that where one of these moments where it was like they don't.
Okay.
So same thing when we started running cross country. That was one of the things they're like, oh, you shouldn't drink soda, and I'm like, okay, and I like really took that. And this was in like 9th grade, so like you hadn't quite started doing it yet.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember like I was just like, okay, I'm just not going to drink soda, and it was just like an internal decision. I didn't really tell anybody. And so for like the next year, anytime we went out to like a restaurant or anything, they go around, take your drink order, I would always order like lemonade or sweet tea.
Okay.
And like nobody, and like in an effort to not drink soda.
Okay.
And in my mind, this was such a solve, such a like, oh yeah, I'm avoiding this thing. Whereas like when I look back, it's like there's no way that drinking the lemonade or the sweet tea they're giving you at a restaurant is any better for you than just having a soda anyway.
Sure. Like the sugar content is probably
the sugar
comparable.
content's the same. The real answer was get water. But so like I remember like this finally coming up, maybe when you started and they were like, yeah, they said like don't drink soda or something. And it was like, yeah, I haven't been doing that for, a year or whatever. And I remember mom being like, what? And I was like, I haven't. She's like, but like what? Even when we're out, I'm like, yeah, I just always get like sweet tea or something. And it was like nobody in the family had like internalized or noticed that I had like stopped consuming soda at all.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and it was like to me, it felt very obvious. Like, oh man, this is such an obvious change Jonathan's making for his life right now. And it was like, but nobody noticed. Like no one picked up on it at all because it's like there was not like sodas stopped being in the fridge. I just didn't grab them. And it's like, how much do you notice what other people are drinking?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. It reminds me of the Shawshank Redemption quote. It's like, how often do you really look at a man's shoes?
Exactly. Yeah.
Answer for me, always.
Always now, right? Yeah.
No, it's a really good point though. I think it's like, yeah, you think that everybody is paying such like watchful and careful attention as to like all of the like little like moments of your existence,
Right.
and they're simply not. You know, like, so it's like a little bit of pressure you can like take off of yourself.
Yeah.
So that's handy. That is handy.
Yep.
Similarly, on that same front, I do have like a different psychological phenomenon
See, I told you it'd be a good segue.
I know. Yeah, we're just jumping all about over here. But there is as per always, I think the introspection is certainly something that I'm constantly like sort of combing through in my brain a little bit. And I was playing a board game a couple of weekends ago. We were at like Smith Mountain Lake for Memorial Day, and it just absolutely downpoured the entire time. So like literally we were able to get in the lake for like 10 minutes, and it basically was sort of like I had to like psych myself up before I like hopped in there because I was like, if I'm here and I brought the boat, got a water ski for at least like 10 minutes. So I did, and everybody went out there and it was a great time. But otherwise, for most of the weekend, we were inside rewatching like Ice Age: The Rise of Dinosaurs or something, which is truly awful. Was not a fan whatsoever, but it was the only DVD, and there was very limited cable and just a single DVD player.
Well,
and so we just it was like on repeat. Addie did seem to at least somewhat be mesmerized by it, so we'll count that for something. But in the meantime, we've been playing this game called Fire Tower, I think. It's actually a really cool board game, and I am excited to play it with you at some point in time.
Oh man, me too.
But the general premise is that you've got, like, if you can imagine like a Scrabble board, like 10 by 10, there's like 4 squares right in the center, which is like where like the fire has like begun. And then you roll for like a wind direction, and then each player goes around and has the ability to like add a gem going in the direction of like the wind, and then also like one card that they can play that can like allow like the fire gems to go somewhere else. So there are 4 players in the game. Everybody has their quadrant, if you can imagine, and you can kind of like keep up with me so far.
I gotcha.
And as the game goes, one of the big things that can like work against you very quickly is if the wind from the very beginning is blowing in your direction, because that means that almost right away, every other player in the game by default is sending flames towards your tower.
Right.
And
that's like how you lose.
And that's how you lose, yes, if the fire makes it to your tower. And then you have like the ability to like put the fire out along the way and stuff like that. But it ends up making like a really interesting visual display, because like the little gems end up sort of like imitating the way that fire would blow, you know, because it is following some kind of a pattern. But one of the things that I started to pick up on as I was playing the game, because there was one round in particular where not a single gem ever got placed in my quadrant.
Right.
And so like I'm playing with 3 other people. Their quadrants are like full of like little gems heading in their respective
Fires ablazing. So like they are in imminent danger of losing the game, because the fire is now heading their way specifically. And as I was sitting there, it occurred to me that I was so anxious. I was like, everything's about to change. The wind's about to blow my direction. Everybody's about to gang up on me. Like I am about to go down. But then like I like zoomed back, and I'm sitting there looking at the board, and I'm like, you literally could not ask for a better situational position for this game to be in, than have no gems whatsoever in your space. Right. Like everyone else is literally on fire, whereas you have managed to not even get a single gem on your quadrant of the board.
Exactly.
Right. Like things are going for you as well as they could many turns into the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing. It's like I am absolutely in the best possible position I could be in, but it was like there are, you know, and this is I'm going to expand this thought like beyond the board game itself a little bit. So for the purposes of the analogy, but it's like there are bad things happening, and it's like I can see the other bad things happening, and I can tell that like bad things have happened, you know, to like the other people by way of the game unfolding so far. And it's like by the very nature of playing the game, you subject yourself to the fire heading in your direction. But like all things being equal, you couldn't be in a better position than you're already in.
Right.
And so I was like, I can back this out to the psychological phenomenon, which is just catastrophizing.
Yeah.
And which is a word I never know if I'm saying correctly. Catastrophizing. I think I got that right.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah, catastrophizing.
But it's basically like assuming the absolute worst case scenario is going to happen every single time, anything comes up ever.
Right.
You know, so it's like if something negative happens, it's almost like, okay, well, that's it. That's the end. Probably everything's going to unravel from here, and like nothing. There's no way to save any of it. The way that I think about this is I was like, you know, probably for the most part in life, it's like the board game. It's like I am standing in like a great situation. There are no fire gems, but it's like just because there are fire gems anywhere else, in the fact that they could cross into my quadrant, even just a little bit. It's like if even just one got placed, it would be like, that's it.
Yeah, I don't like this.
It's like I'm going down. But then it's like, you know, you can look at like all of the other, and it's not to say like, you know, like, oh, I am immune of anything bad happening to me, and all the bad things will happen to all of, you know, to everyone else out there in the world. But it's I think it's been like an oddly helpful thing for me to realize, like when something like goes wrong, or there's like a disagreement or an argument or a complaint or like a negative comment or something like that, like where you know, it's like I feel like it's like, okay, there was one, that's one gem, your fire tower is not at risk,
right?
Like you have more than enough. It's like, yes, there is a fire, yes, it is in your quadrant. No, it is not like going to burn you down.
Yeah, like as you're playing the game, you're looking around, noticing you're in the best possible position, and you're still responding as if you're in like one card away from certain death.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's like no, like not only is not everyone about to gang up on you, they can't. All they can do is play defense right now.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, but that doesn't matter. I could still probably, I still might and probably will lose in a moment. Whereas like the truth is, even if a little bit of fire got over to you, it's like that you can, it's not like you can't handle it.
Right. Yes.
But like that's how you're living your life, is what you're saying. That like even when you look out, it's like even though things could be going as good for you as you think they could, like you're acting as though the, you know, earth is about to open beneath you.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it would be like being out to sea, being in a ship, and seeing like one tiny little cloud and otherwise a completely clear blue sky day, and being like, that's probably going to turn into a hurricane.
Yeah.
You know, like if, any second now, like, you know what, like I have no other defenses. It's just me out here alone. And you know what, there is a cloud, and that cloud could turn into a bigger cloud, and that cloud could turn into high winds and thunder and rain and waves, and, you know, and it's
right.
Like, but yeah. So anyway, this is something that I know that I do, but when something feels like it's going wrong, it's always like the part of my brain that is so certain that imminent destruction is coming, that it's like I can't out rationalize myself, if that makes sense. You know, it's like are you just imagining everything being the worst, or is it possible that today's just a bad day? Is it possible that little cloud's going to blow over? You know, and it's hard to know. And then of course the other thing too is that like it may be the case that genuinely bad things do end up happening, but that doesn't mean they impact you forever and ever and ever.
Right.
You know, it's like at some point in time, that's like maybe you do have a stormy day at sea.
Right.
But like it can pass.
Yeah.
And then the next day, you know what comes after a storm? Usually a little bit of calm.
Yeah. After the what is it in after the rain comes the rainbow.
Is that, are you quoting Star Killer Base Undercover Boss?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just simply one of the greatest pieces of internet media that there is.
Right. Yes, it is a real peak for SNL.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Matt.
Yeah.
Radar technician.
Nothing has ever been as good.
Want to have my muffin, Matt?
Muffin.
Anyway,
Come
so
on.
that's been my big like past week's worth of psychological self-assessment is the catastrophizing. So
nice.
Ask yourself whether or not you do this.
Do I catastrophize? There are certainly times when I think I do, where I am like where like if something's going bad, I'm just like, it'll probably be this way forever now. Better just go ahead and start getting used to it.
Right.
Or something, even though like that's unrealistic and not true most of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there an opposite of catastrophizing? Because it occurs to me as I was even saying this, I was like, sometimes I think that I also have the opposite issue, which is that like if there have been 3 bad things that have happened in a row, then I'm assuming that I'm on a downward trend that will only ever go down for the rest of forever. Alternatively, sometimes I feel like if 3 good things happen in a row, that I'm like, I am basically invincible right now. Everything is awesome, and it will always be awesome, and which also then ends up having its own complete flip side, which is that after three good things have happened, if one negative thing has happened, then it's like, well, there goes that trend forever.
I know. I feel like that the problem, what makes it so easy to catastrophize is that sometimes that does happen. Like things can be going really well and then something bad can happen.
Right.
And like you were feeling so good and then something bad happened. And then it's like you become afraid of feeling good again because it's like, it's like that saying, like when you're at the top, the only place to go is down.
Right.
And it's like, I don't like the existence of that saying, know?
Right.
It's like, we should just eliminate that saying. It's like when you're at the top, the only way to go is down. It's like, that's just like, what a negative outlook.
It's true. It's true.
It's like you could keep going up. You could plateau. You could go left or right. You could glide over to that mountain, whatever.
Well, I mean, that's the thing too, is that it's like, what do you want to not win the Super Bowl? Because if you do, ever not winning it again is basically, it's like,
exactly.
It's like you have to be able to like take the peak, frame it in your mind as a glorious thing that has happened, and cherish it forever as like, it's like, you know what, there was a really cool thing. I accomplished a really cool thing. It doesn't mean that I won't ever have a bad day again, but I did still accomplish a really cool thing.
Right. Yeah. It's not like, you're right. It would be ridiculous to be like, it's not worth winning the Super Bowl if you can't win it every single year for the rest of your life, because if you ever do lose it again, people will only remember that and you'll probably be a failure.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Be like, that's ridiculous. If you even get to the Super Bowl once, that's amazing.
Right.
You're already playing professional football. You've already got the dream, man.
Right.
So
here's the other. You're exactly right.
Yeah. Right. Like you're already professional, right? How many people played college football that didn't make it to the NFL? Most of them.
Right. Right. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. It's like even if you made it to the NFL and did nothing other than just be a backup to someone else the entire time, you still won.
Right. Yeah.
Like that is still incredible. But yeah. So the other I think like lure of this particular like way of thinking is frequently like, well, if I constantly predict the worst case scenario, then even if it ever does come to pass, then at least, you know what? At least I was right.
Yeah. That's no solace. Yeah.
I know. It's like, wow. It goes back to that like Newt's Commander quote. It's sort of like the, worrying just means you suffer twice.
This is exactly what it is. And it's like, if you constantly worry about the worst case scenario, then even if it comes true, like, oh, you were right, but also now you're in the worst case scenario, so good for you.
Right. It's like, like this is not the thing that you want to be right about, and it can also become like its own version of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, so to speak, where it's like if you're constantly manifesting this negative thing to happen, and then it comes to pass, then it's like. I think some of the examples that I was reading about when I was reading about catastrophizing
I'm going to look up what's the opposite of catastrophizing while you tell the story.
Okay. Let's see. It'd be like the idea of like starting some type of initiative, some type of project, and feeling like inadequate results early were basically an indicator that it wasn't worth putting any more effort into at all. And so the idea there is that like you may have a great idea, but just because it didn't take off on day one, you gave up on it. But if you would be willing to give it 10 days and that like, kind of persist through the early lack of interest, then maybe it could end up yielding something that's like truly amazing. You just kind of have to like be willing to stick with it. Mm-hmm. And that like I think can be like a particularly challenging thing to do as well.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not getting the results I want, and therefore and that's when it becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like I'm not getting the results that I want, and so I'm not going to put any more effort into it, and therefore I will never get the results that I want. But also you stopped putting effort into it, so why would anything have ever changed?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting because then I feel like there's like phrases that can compete with just about any sentiment you ever feel. Like, oh, it's also like you know what, you got to know when to quit. You got to know when to quit, and it's like that competes with this other idea as well. And it's like that can get into my mind, and I'll have, competing phrases,
right,
in terms of like which one should you actually follow, like which voice should you listen to,
right. Yeah, it's like sometimes, yeah, you're right, it's like sometimes phrases just exist out there and they have like this presence in the world, and you're sort of like, well, if they're so widespread and accepted, there must be some truth to them, but sometimes they or conflict with one another.
Yes,
or it's just like, you're right, like you constantly, you're right, like you got to know when to quit.
But also never give up.
Yeah, but also never give up.
Right.
Yeah, it's like
those are both phrases you've certainly heard before.
Yeah.
And unlike, probably at any given point in time. So I mean,
you're at certain points they're both true.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I very frequently, we've told the story many times, but like, early Super Carlin brothers, like you easily could have said at the end of year one, like, never give up, and eventually this could go somewhere, or you gotta know when to quit, man. We did 260 videos in 1 year, and you know what? Like we're not doing it full time. So and it's like, and both of those sentiments could have been like reasonable,
right.
to hear in that moment.
Yes,
like, and it would really just depend on like which one you decided to like latch onto.
Right.
So
we didn't quit.
we didn't quit. Now we're here. Now you hear this
we
voice.
are.
Yeah.
Now you're hearing us talk right now. So there wasn't an obvious, like, just this is the opposite of catastrophizing. I thought when I looked it up, there would be like a really obvious word, and it would be like, so some people are like this, and that's problematic. But then on the other side of things, there's people who are just always like, assuming the best out of every single thing, and that's a problem for these reasons. And there wasn't like an opposite to it, which I feel like is very telling.
That it is. I mean, how about the word delusional? Would you feel like delusional could be like
catastrophizing or delusional? But catastrophizing could be its own form of delusions.
It's true. Yes,
yeah.
I think you would have to apply delusional in a way that made sense. But like this could be a type of situation where like someone potential. I mean, and again, maybe it depends on your perspective, but like someone who has been doing something for 3 decades, to no prevail, and has like utilized every resource at their disposal, and it's like it still hasn't gone anywhere, and yet they're still like, my big break is just around the corner. It's like,
right.
It's like, and again, it goes back to that same question. It's like, maybe it is.
Yeah.
It's like maybe it's like literally, it's you're only ever one idea away from like from something,
right,
from something working,
right.
But at what point in time does somebody become delusional, or within this particular capacity, should we just like erase that completely? It's like, there's no such thing as delusional. If you think it can work, then like keep going.
Right. Yeah.
Keep trying.
Is it illusions of grandeur? Is that or delusions of grandeur? Does that mean the same thing?
You said both. They both kind of sounded right.
They both sound like they could kind of work. Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's illusions of grandeur. But like even that is probably the type of thing, where I would be willing to bet that anybody who's become a world leader, it's like you're talking about such a finite group of people, but almost all of them surely had illusion. I don't know which one it is now.
Yeah.
Illusions of grandeur. I'm going to commit to one and just assume I'm right.
Go, boom.
And somebody, may have talked to George Washington and been like, that's a little bit bold.
Yeah. Like, defeat the British? Come on now.
I don't think so. But like, then there's also sort of the fact that I feel like they say like there are no key contributors as to like types of people who will go on to be like Olympians, for example, because or NFL athletes, because it's like you're talking about a sample size that is so alarmingly small, despite the fact that the NFL may seem huge and there have been hundreds or thousands of players who have played in the game.
Right.
It's such a small, tiny percent of people who ever make it to that level,
right?
At all.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's really like there's no contributing anything that can suggest like, yes, like you were born under this star sign at this date with a football in your hand, and
right,
it's like we can predict early and true for you,
right? It's like, it feels like the main thing that's going to make you a good football player is being genetically tall and big.
And yeah, it's that combination of it's like the talent, resources, and opportunity. Is that like the three things that usually like all have to like find a way to like merge, in a capacity, because like for so many Olympians, and very rightfully so, like whenever they're talking about like how these people have made it there, there's a lot of shout outs given to the parents along the way as well, who agreed or saw the potential somewhere along the way,
right?
Because I have to imagine that there's at least some human beings on planet Earth who had Olympic potential, but like maybe didn't have like the agreement from the parents or the access to resources to go and like pursue doing it in such a capacity. But Alice and I were talking about her sister and nieces and nephew. They race BMX bikes.
Yeah,
and it's like their version of like what we would have seen as like travel soccer, where like this is like what they do on the weekends. They're like at the track. They've got like all the gear and like the bike racks and the like that like this is like what they do, and they're out there and they're like,
doing it.
Then they're doing it. But we're I mean it is a fairly, in as many hobbies are, it's a fairly expensive endeavor to get into,
right?
Because the just the bike can cost a lot, let alone any of the
travel and the practice, the whatever passes you need to get into the training grounds, living in an area that has an appropriate place to train,
right? And coaches and all the rest,
all that stuff.
So I mean there's certainly like a lot that that has to go into it. And so like not only do you have to be this level of talent, but you have to find it early enough, and you have to have the right coaches, and then
right.
All the rest of the ingredients need to merge together. But I do always find it to be particularly interesting. There's nothing I love more than hearing a good Olympian story.
Oh, absolutely. Gosh, I can't. There was a couple of books. What did we read last year? There was one that there was Think Again, and then there was the other one about like the 1%ing.
Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits. I can't. Yeah, I think maybe this was in the Atomic Habit book. I always think about this one particular story about this couple who decided that they wanted their children to be like chess champions. Yes, and like. They just sort of decided this before the kids were even born.
Yeah.
And so like they ended up having 3 daughters, and like they just decided like we're dedicating all of our efforts to making our children chess champions. And so like from the moment they were born, their rooms were like, covered in like, even, baby pictures of like pawns and bishops. And they had like chess children's books and chess, imagery around them, even if they couldn't play it. And as soon as they could start to learn the games, they would just like play the games with them, and they would play against them, and they would give them like tutorial books and give them computer games. And they hired coaches, from like the age of 4 or something. And it was like,
and the family culture was chess.
Yeah, the family culture was chess.
There's nothing more important than excelling at chess.
Right. It's like, this is what we did. Everything about it, you had dinner, you played dad in chess, and then you played your sister in chess or whatever.
Right.
And it was like, it's so crazy that they didn't know that the girl, because whenever you hear stories about like great chess people, it's like, oh yeah, they just had like a natural knack for it and they sort of went on for it. But it's like they couldn't have known ahead of time that these people were good at chess. And it's not, I doubt they just like got lucky and just like, yeah, we wanted our girls to be good at chess, and turns out they were. But like the eldest daughter, she went on to immediately start winning a bunch of championships, and then the middle daughter like outperformed her, and the third daughter was like one of the youngest grandmasters in the world.
Like
ever.
Like I think faster than like Bobby Fischer. Yeah. Bobby Fischer?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, that's the big chess guy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think this like one of the daughters got to that title faster than he did.
Yeah. And so it was just like, was it a matter of just like, oh yeah, they were all just predisposed for chess? It was like, no, they just lived and breathed it because that was the culture of their family and what was important to them from like the moment they were born.
Yes.
And I think even the parents weren't like, other than like passing hobbyists or something at chess, they weren't like competitive people growing up. They were just like, this is what our kids are going to do, and so they did.
Well, I think there's a chance that it predated that entirely, where I think that like the way in which they got together was like an agreement to like, I mean, it sounds kind of odd from this perspective, but like to run an experiment together.
Oh, like on the, you're right. Maybe that was part of it too.
Yeah. So I mean, it was like a very like predetermined, like this is the goal from the start.
Right. Can we raise chess champions if it's all we care about?
Yes.
And the answer was yes.
The answer was yes. The answer was yes. I mean, and so, you know, it would, I don't know, but it always goes back. There was a year one SCB video that I made that was like the create your player theory. And the very brief version of it was, I remember in Madden, the football game, you know, in like 2002 or something like that, you could create yourself in the game. And usually what I'd love to do was go through and make myself like 7'2" and 240 pounds and 99 on every single stat, so I could go and put myself on my team, throw the ball to me every single time, and I would catch it every single time, and nobody could tackle me, and it was awesome.
Yeah, right. Ben Carlin, football player champion.
Yeah, and I mean, I was like, there's nothing cooler than the ability to do this thing. And then I think that eventually, or a couple years later, you know, like I would get like the new version each year. They sort of like nerfed it to the point where you could only like assign 200 total stat points, which meant you had to choose whether or not they could be, you know, fast or catch the ball or jump or, you know, like juke and stuff like that. So like at some point in time you had to like be like, okay, you can make them super balanced and have everything instead of like 50 stat points be 60 stat points. And then they're not really good at anything, but they're well-rounded at everything.
Right.
Or alternatively, if you want to make them like really good at jumping, like they could jump higher than anybody else in the game, but then you really don't have any stat points left over to do just about anything else with them.
Right. And you were forced to make like a more reasonably well-rounded player.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then I think what they're really trying to do was to get you to like play campaign where your character would then, by way of playing with them, improve, and their stat points could then like grow.
Yeah, you could like do practices and get stat points to allocate to them, which is like, God, even when I think about that, it's like you wanted to play Madden so you could run practice drills, like boring.
But boring.
Actually, as you're talking about this, I'm having some crazy flashbacks to Madden. Do you remember in the game, like you would like win, you would play a game and then you would get like a pack of cards?
Yes. I do remember this.
In the games. And like I always remember I so loved opening the cards because sometimes at the back of it there would be like almost like a cheat code card or something.
Yep.
But it would be like sticky hands, and it would be this funny drawing of a guy, and he'd have like glue on his hands, but it'd be like you could then in another game open the menu and go to your cards and like activate it, and it would be like your players are like 20% more likely to catch the ball for the next like 5 minutes or something. Yes, dude. I'm thinking about now, like I loved getting those and feeling like, oh man, this is gonna give me such an edge. But then I also am remembering like never ever playing one of the cards.
No way.
Like always like being afraid, like, is this the opportunity to use it? No, better save it for a better opportunity. Being like very extremely conservative, like this is a one-time use sort of situation. If you use it now, you won't be able to use it later. So never use it ever. And so I remember like love getting them, love collecting them, loving anticipating the moment when I would activate one of them and never doing it.
That is so funny and amazing. Because it's I think also in Atomic Habits, one of the things that they talk about is like online shopping and how like typically like the process of going through and like making a purchase and everything. It's like the moment of like the dopamine hit that you get comes the moment you like press purchase.
Yeah.
But it's not when the thing arrives, it's not unboxing it, it's not using it. The happiest you ever are with that purchase is the moment you click the button. Mm-hmm. And it's like one of those things like when you like realize that and you're like, when it arrives, and I think that he even gives the example that like there's like some people out there who like have realized this behavior and do it on purpose and like will purchase things and then return them upon like arrival so that like they get the dopamine hit of having purchased an object without ever actually using it. But it just sounds to me like getting these cards and like having them and like the potential energy to do something fun. It's like, oh, but I can't ever actually do it. You know, it's like,
because then I won't be able to do it.
Then I won't be able to do it.
I'd rather have my cake than eat it, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember these exact same cards, and my childhood best friend, his name was John, and there would be sleepovers that we would have, and we would be so interested in collecting these cards so that we could have them in the Madden video game that we would literally play because you had to play through an entire game to like get a pack of cards or whatever. And so we would set like games that were 2 minutes long, and we would both play on one half, and the other person would play on defense. And then the moment the ball was hiked, they would just press a tackle, or like change character, tackle. So like it would cause all of the players to just like you would toggle through literally all of them and make them all jump on the ground.
Make the entire other team just fall over.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so our goal was to run up the score as fast as we could so that we could get the most number of points, so that we could get the most number of packs at the end of at the end of each game.
Right. Or just farming packs.
Farming packs. So what we literally do is spend the entire night not playing a competitive game.
Right.
So that we would have unlimited access to all of these cards, so that then when we did actually play, we could just like stomp the computer.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so it was like at no point in time was the objective to ever just get better at the game.
Right.
It was to basically, farm the packs so that we didn't have to be better at the game, so that we could beat the computer by using our hard-earned trading cards in game, which was ridiculous. And also sometimes I feel like you didn't get any of like the trick cards or whatever. And so it'd be like, oh my gosh, we just played an entire, that 8-minute game took us like 12 minutes to actually play with all the inner scenes and everything. And it's like, so then you only get 5 of those per hour. Right. Like 5 packs.
Guys are doing some math here. Is it worth it?
Gotta stay up till 3.
Right. Yeah. Then we don't even. It sounds like the same thing though. Did you ever end up using the cards?
It seemed like rarely, but like that feeling, that payoff was like it was so great.
I feel like if you did use them, it wasn't like it. It would just like so happen so passively. It wasn't like so obvious that the card was in effect. Like if you use the sticky hands, it wasn't like all of a sudden you could like physically see like some sort of glue on the gloves or something. It was just like, and it wasn't even like you could use that and then your person could still drop the ball.
He could still drop the ball. Yeah. It was like you make them better, not perfect.
Right.
It's not like 2002 Ben Carlin.
Whoa. Yeah.
Number 36.
Right.
7'2".
7'2". Perfect stats everywhere. Good luck, losers.
Right. Yeah. That guy never dropped the ball.
He was great.
He was great because he didn't run cross country.
Right. He was hitting the gym and good genetics, I guess.
Yeah. Apparently all the things. That is hilarious. Okay.
Well, speaking of different sports, Ben, let's segue.
Heyo.
So you guys, you ran the marathon, and then we did our Maytime Murph.
Yes, we did.
And there's been some chatter about what should we do next? Right now I guess we're doing miles managed, which we can talk about in a second if you want. But there's been like it seemed like there was a gathering on Saturday mornings to do a thing with like Mike and Steven or whatever.
Yes.
And so I think you asked me a while ago, and I was like, we should get into pickleball. And then I think you asked Steven the next day, and he was like, we should get into pickleball.
I was like, have you talked to Jay? And he was like, no. And I was like,
he said the same thing.
What are the odds of both of you guys suggesting pickleball?
I know.
I didn't anticipate this.
Yeah, well, it's out there, man. So I guess the question is, should we get into pickleball?
Well, I mean, so I feel like, so once upon a time, you and I rented a like lake house venue place where we went and we shot our very meager Duck in a Cup video, which was available or is available on Patreon. If you want to check that out, patreon.com/popcorn culture. But while we were down there, like this place that we rented was like, I don't know, maybe like 20 acres and like that. It was like a brick ranch, but like it had like a pool in the backyard, which we could do some stuff with. And it had like a separate warehouse building that just had a pickleball court on it.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that like a lot of people who rent this particular venue, it's like, I'm going to go and like have like a pickleball marathon.
Right.
Because like you got like full access and like you can't bother anybody. You're completely remote. Like it seems like so much fun. And so we played some games and it was super fun.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's become this thing that's like just very quickly growing activity.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, my suspicion is probably
like, I mean, if you don't know what it is, it's basically it's a 4-person game, I think, usually, and you're basically playing tennis on a smaller court with smaller rackets and with a wiffle ball.
It literally feels like an activity that a gym teacher invented for kids who like were less likely to pick up tennis.
Yeah.
Is what I have always felt about it. Like even like when we went and stayed at that house and I saw like the pickleball rackets and stuff, I was like, well, this can't be real pickleball. This is like a wiffle ball. And then like I've like since like looked into it like more, and it's like that is correct.
That is how it goes.
Yeah. It's like because in my mind, I remember going and playing like racquetball.
Yeah.
In high school, which was something that like our group of friends would pretty periodically go and like we would like rent a court at like the local YMCA type place that we went to, and go and just like whale the ball. And I mean, it's like a super hard rubber ball that travels insanely fast.
Yeah.
And it's super bouncy. But yeah, there is absolutely something to like that. I mean, not to say that pickleball is slow either. It's probably like a game of ping pong where it's like you could go and play it in a super recreational manner, or you could play against people who are super good, and I bet it's intense.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, but I bet it's less. I think it's even more approachable than ping pong.
You think it's more approachable than ping pong?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me tell you what I don't like about ping pong
is that it's not approachable at all.
It's not approachable at all. No, whenever you play ping pong, it is because someone who's good at it has asked you to do it.
Ping pong and Mario Kart are literally in the exact same column. It's no matter what, whenever you're playing either of them, someone in the group is way better than everyone else, and they win every single time.
No, Ben, this is my strategy is to never tell people when I'm good at stuff.
Okay.
And just wait for it to naturally happen and then blow their minds.
This
is my strategy. However, the backside of this is that it means I invest a lot of time in getting really good at things that never come up ever.
So you're just waiting. You're just biding your time.
I'm just biding my time, and you just wait. Everyone, people enjoy Mario Kart. That's a good one because lots of people enjoy Mario Kart, and it feels reasonable that it could come up at any given moment.
True.
And then that's when it's the most fun. Okay. But like ping pong, on the other hand, like our friend John, man, you go to his house, and he would of course want to play ping pong because he was going to destroy you. You can't even return a serve.
I know.
Yeah.
But this was the thing is, I was like, it's like having the table itself makes such a huge difference because then clearly like the person's going to like go down there and like practice all the time.
Yeah.
And I remember our parents got us a pool table when we were kids, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. Like I'm gonna have a lifelong school like talent of being amazing at pool. That never happened.
No,
I just never got good at pool.
Oh man, I feel like I went down there and I played a lot of. I mean, you can just, the great thing about having a pool table is you can just play by yourself and just shoot the balls into the pockets.
Yeah, just
you don't have to like be stripes or solids or anything. Just go out and do it. And I feel like as an adult, it is translated to like if you're playing pool a lot, the best thing to do to get better at pool is just play it a lot.
Yeah.
But as an adult, having played many, many, many hours, it's like I feel like I have maybe I'm 15% better than your average person, but not anywhere near as good as someone who is hitting the tables all the time.
Right. Well, so I gotta say, I have such a ridiculous anecdote to apply to this particular thing because I have been playing a game that does have like a global ranking mechanism, which like lets me know just how many people out there on the planet are better at something than I am.
Yeah.
Which is a very, very humbling experience.
Yeah.
But I have never been huge for mobile games.
Sure.
Not something that I've really like been able to like ever like truly commit to. I've pretty much had one, maybe two on my phone. Like hard stop for like the past, I don't even know, 8 years.
Yeah.
One of them is just like a little slider numbers game. I think it's called 2048.
Oh, that game's so fun.
It is super fun. I usually exclusively play both of these games on flights. And so like back when we were doing like meetups and stuff.
Yeah, they require no additional download or internet connection. Once you have it, you've got the full game.
Exactly. Yeah. And so this was always something like it used to be like when we were doing like meetups and stuff like that and traveling a bit more. I would say like I played a tiny bit more, which is to say like, 10 times a year.
Right.
Because it would be like, all right, well, I'm on a flight, so I'm gonna do that thing that I only do while on flights. But here recently, I don't really know like what has caused it, but I've been playing the game Kingdom Rush.
Ah, so fun.
I know, super fun. It's just like a tower defense game.
But it is the tower defense game.
It is, it's really great. It's just like the little characters are hilarious and fun. It's like super whimsical, and I don't know. It's like simple and complicated at the same time.
Yeah.
But at varying points in my life, I have like gotten reasonably goodish to okay at the game, and then like my game gets cleared or my cache gets I got a new phone or whatever,
right.
Like all my data's lost or something happens, and so I've never really like made it like super far. But so here recently they have a mode which is like an endless like endless enemy mode,
like horde mode.
Horde mode, yeah, exactly. So it's just sort of like the game starts, you have very little cash flow, and like there is no end, there is no beating it. You just play until you lose. And this was always something that I felt like Diablo 2 lacked, because like you could get your character up to the point where he's like really good, you could just beat the game over and over and over and over and over again, but it was like, what's like, but why? Like there's like
at some point there's like, now what do I do?
Right. It's like, it's so fun when every like new piece of equipment you get makes you like that much better and that much more competitive, and like eventually, okay, now I can beat more monsters. Like, no, now I can do the most difficult difficulty like solo, and then it's like, then what? And it's like nothing.
Right.
And the problem is that the time arc it takes to get from being very bad to being very good is not long. Usually it's just like, a month or a few weeks.
And it's like, I feel like even that would be different if like the final boss, like when you got to Diablo or Baal, they were like nearly unbeatable or something.
Yeah, so it was almost like to defeat them gave you some type of like visible accolade that like people like, dang, they've beat Baal.
They beat Baal, like that was insane. That took a lot of coordination amongst several people to do, and that would be something. So just like, then even just beating the game would have been like, I beat Diablo. That was great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, then that could become like the gold at the end of the tunnel, or like the thing you could constantly like aspire to that would take like that much more commitment to be better at. But so anyway, in this game, Kingdom Rush, the horde mode does keep track of like a global score board.
Oh, okay.
And I like had kind of been playing like sort of like super casually, just like kind of like one of those things like pull up the game like every once in a while, and I was getting to like 16, 17, 18 waves almost every single time. And that high score was placing me at like 220,000th in the world.
Right.
So like really, really not good. And it was one of those things where it was like, I started playing more, and it was like, all right, like I'm gonna try a little bit more. I'm gonna try new strategy. All right, I'm gonna try a new thing. And the more that like I started to like see like tiny like little bits of progress, it was like, all right, this is kind of fun, you know? And so then I got up to like, I just got like my most recent high score, I think, was just literally yesterday. And I was like, I'm kind of excited to see how I rank on the overall scoreboard now.
Yeah.
And it was like 20,000th. And it was just one of those things where I was like, there are 20,000 people on the planet who have
have done like better than me.
It's like, I was so proud of this score. How have 20,000 people? And in my mind, I'm like, every single one of them is just a casual player, and like here I am like feverishly working to like try to get better at the game, and I'm like sweating while I'm playing. And it's like, not now, Addison. Like, not really, but like it's one of those things where it's like I'm like, I feel like I'm like committed at this point in time.
And I imagine to get even to 50 rounds takes like a good 20, 30 minutes.
Yes, at this point in time, it's like I almost have to wait until Addison has been put to bed.
No one talk to me. I need a good chunk of time here. Today could be the day. We don't know.
We don't know. It could happen.
Right.
And so then of course like I got my score, so I was like 20,000th in the world, and I was just like, every single one of these, it was like, in my mind, it was like every person who's ever beaten me is just that complete recreational user who's just playing on the plane.
Right, and they're just like, I got lucky, cool, yeah.
It's like, how about that?
Yeah.
I'm good at this, and it's just like, I don't know. I don't even know the point I'm trying to make here. We started talking about something, but I think it's just like maybe it's the pickleball or like the ping pong or the Mario Kart.
Right, yeah. Like, are you good at it or not? Well, I think what's so great is that I think why pickleball probably has caught on here recently so much is because like even when we were just at that lake weekend doing the duck in a cup stuff, like you're right, we would like just like knock it back and forth. And I think like when people think about wanting to play tennis, it's like they imagine like a game where the ball is going back and forth for a while and you're like really competing and eventually someone just misses.
Right.
And it's like to play any amount of actual tennis, like that's just so never how it is.
Right.
Like if you go back and forth like 4 or 5 times, that's amazing. But like to go like 20 times, that's a really unusual bout you just had.
Yes.
Probably it was like 4, 5, boom, someone was out of position. That's it. You're tired, done.
Right.
But like right away, I think with pickleball, it can very much be like you can go back and forth a lot really quickly.
Like the feud to the finish line is very feverish.
Yeah, it's feverish, and because of the way wiffle balls are, like they will slow down a lot.
Yes.
Almost no matter what?
Right.
And so like at some point, like even if you're up right on the net and you just slam it, like it might bounce off the ground and go high, but then it's going to float there and they're going to have time to get to it and at least knock it back towards you.
Right.
And yeah, so I think that's what is so fun, is like the idea that you can really just like go back and have like, and that to me is what's really fun too, is that like it can really feel very competitive and back and forth right away.
Yes, yeah. And I think that probably does unlock something for a lot of people where it's like the game is that much more approachable.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like,
actually, oh my gosh, I was just watching a video about this exact thing yesterday that I think probably helps explain it. I've talked before about how I play the mobile game Marvel Snap a lot.
Yeah.
And so I was watching this presentation by one of the creators of the game yesterday on TikTok, and he was talking about like how they were trying to position the game so that like, or he was pointing at like, okay, so a lot of games, this is how it is, where like, if you win the game, maybe that's like a plus 30 for you, but then like losing the game feels equally as bad as the joy you get from winning. So like winning is plus 30, whereas losing is minus 30, which if that means, you know, and all things being equal, you are walking away from the game with a net 0 positivity.
Yes, I would say this is how I feel with Rocket League.
Right.
You know, it's like you can win 2 games, lose 2 games, and you walk away and you're like, well, there's that.
Right. But I would bet Rocket League is very much is good at achieving exactly what I'm about to explain.
Okay.
Which is like the way they tried to manipulate everything in the game to make it feel like even whilst you were losing, you had a chance to win, or that you still had fun even if you lost. So whereas like an absolute win in the game might be like a net 30 positive for you, and you know, just, you know, joy points or whatever.
Yeah, I love it.
But like even if you lost, you might still be at like a net 10 because like you were trying to do something and like it worked out, but things just didn't fall your way.
Oh,
like,
yeah, that's interesting.
I did a cool thing, but my opponent just did something a little bit better. Or they also have the ability to just like retreat from the match so that like you don't like, you know, lose everything, that you don't lose entirely, like your cubes or whatever.
Okay.
That's what you're trying to win. But you can at some point recognize that like you're about like you're in an you've been checkmated essentially. So like if the game ends, you'll lose the maximum number of cubes, but you can also just hit retreat right now. And so like they used to have the button say, you know, concede, but they switched it to retreat. So now it's not that you're not giving up, you're making a tactical retreat. And then when you do that, it used to say you lose, but they changed it to say escaped. So it's like, yeah, oh no, you didn't lose this game. You're a genius. You made a good tactical retreat. You're so smart.
That's
you know,
amazing.
And it's just like these little tricks they've done, and like they've made it they try not to put cards in the game that will like completely shut the other person down from being able to play the game. So like there's not a lot of like what's commonly called like control cards.
Okay.
Which is if you heard us talk about Big Steve, that's how he likes to play Pokemon.
Yeah.
It's just like, nope, this is not you can't play because I played cards that stop you from doing what you want to do. So I'll just sit here and do my stuff and you just sit there. And that's
Right.
like that's no fun. And like that's a very common strategy in most like competitive card games, which is totally fine. But they do, it seems like they actively are trying to like, we can't not have it, but we're not going to make it overwhelming in Snap or
Interesting.
whatever.
That's good. Yeah, because I mean, nobody wants to sit there and like bask in their loss.
Exactly.
Like, you know, it's one of those things where I feel like if you're even like sitting across from a fellow human being, you're like out physically at a tournament. It's sort of like, okay, like, you know, you gotta see it through, you know, like whatever. But especially for like online gameplay, if you're just like, you know, sitting in the bathroom by yourself and it's like, well, this is over. It's like there's literally nothing preventing you from just being like, I'm out.
Right.
So it's like I think that's probably very good strategy from like a game maker standpoint, just to be like, all right, you know, like, is there a way to like make people more comfortable with like seeing it through, even if like, you know, it means a loss along the way.
So anyway, that's why I think pickleball is probably fun, because if you've hit the ball back and forth 10 times, you felt like you were really in it. You had a chance to win that point.
Yes.
You know, 5 times.
Right.
And you lost, but it was really fun losing that point.
Exactly.
So anyway, we should get into pickleball.
I like it. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm in. You have completely sold me on the experience. The only real downside is that we're getting ready. I think we talked about the possibility of having an episode with Tyler. This week, which unfortunately he was not feeling well. We weren't able to get the time that we had scheduled with him to work out. And so we're getting ready to leave for the beach. And so the only thing that makes me sad about this plan is that it's gonna be like 2 weeks before we have the opportunity to go and play some pickleball.
Well, that's true. I suppose there could be a pickleball court at the beach, but we have to look into that.
Okay. Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that. All right, so more reports back. And if you are a pickleball player, be sure to let us know anything that we should know, anything.
Actually, I guess while you're listening to this, we've already been at the beach for a full week. So
that's true. Any tips from me in particular on how to beat Jay? How can I take him down?
I don't know.
This could be my moment.
It's also doubles, so it feels like you could also like put some of the burden on your teammate. Like it wasn't me.
Being able to share the weight with a teammate goes such a long way so immediately because you like win together and lose together. And I think that it makes just such a spectacular like psychological difference in the way that you like approach the game.
Yeah.
And honestly, the biggest thing it reminds me of is the sport that we invented back when we were in like high
Venice.
school or college, Venice, which was essentially, it was very
the
similar.
same thing.
Yeah. It was just literally tennis with a volleyball on a tennis court, and I think we allowed it such that you had like one bounce.
No, you had two bounces.
Two bounces, okay.
Which meant that you could get up to the net and absolutely spike the gnarliness right out of the ball, immediately take the one bounce, but it had another one to go. So like giant spikes weren't always that great. What you really needed was like a very long range, like the first bounce is going to carry the ball way away from them kind of spike.
Exactly. But then you had to be like very particular about it because like, you know, if you overshot it, then you're just out of bounds entirely.
The second bounce was really the magic of that game because you could always get back into it.
I think it also helped because it also let the other team reset in the process too. So I feel like we have absolutely found the answer to why it was such a fun game is because it made it so competitive. Like I remember the summer that we played and we were going and like inviting all sorts of different people out to like come and play the game with us. And it was so much fun. And at no point in time do I ever remember winning or losing a game.
No, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. I just remember it just being
it was so fun to run around the court and hit the ball back to the other side.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I also remember getting lots of blisters on my feet from the running around.
We'd play barefoot and stuff.
Yeah. I
which
mean,
was
as you
smart,
do.
right.
Regulation.
Totally.
Right. You just gotta build up the calluses. That's all. Anyway, so all right. So pickleball maybe on a horizon, more to report back on in the future. But otherwise, guys, if you have any feedback about the show, you can send that over to popcornculturepod@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to check out that episode of the Duck in a Cup video that we made, or an extra show that we record every single week called After the Final Pop. It's just an extra 10 to 15 minutes of Jay and I talking about just something we didn't get to in the main episode. You can do that at patreon.com/popcornculture. Just select the not the show after the show, the After the Final Pop tier. And you also get access to the entire back catalog. So it's a really good like bang for your buck tier if you're wanting to just get some more popcorn culture action out of that. But otherwise, guys, until next time,
Pop.